Good morning and welcome to today's first panel titled A New Phase for Hanford Cleanup. You don't have to operate long in the nuclear world before you hear about the Hanford site, whether it's the national security mission that began in the 1940s with the world's first full-scale operational nuclear reactor, the wide variety of nuclear-related research and development that took place at Hanford over the decades, or what is today one of the world's most technically complex cleanup projects. But from the community's perspective, from TRIDEC and Hanford communities and all the people that we represent, we are extremely proud of the Hanford site's many past contributions to the nation and of our friends and our family members who go to work every day working to progress the national security, the environmental remediation mission today. And Hanford cleanup is tough. There's a lot to do, and the work can be very challenging, but great progress is being made in many ways, large and small. So we're fortunate to have a fantastic team who are leading the cleanup effort at Hanford, and this morning we're going to hear from them. And so I'll keep my introduction real short, just quickly introduce the panel and then hand it over to Brian to kick things off. So on the panel, we have Amy Basche, who is the president of Hanford Mission Integration Solutions, Brian Harkins, acting deputy manager for DOE's Hanford Field Office, Mark Hughey, who is the acting general manager for Navarro-ATL, Carol Johnson, the president and program manager for HanfordTankWasteOperations&Closure, Mark Johnson, principal vice president for high-level waste treatment at Bechtel's Waste Treatment and Immobilization Plant, and then lastly, Bob Wilkinson, president of Central Plateau Cleanup Company. And with that, Brian, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, David. Thank you all for joining us this morning to talk about the progress at Hanford and the future of Hanford. I really appreciate you being here today. So Hanford, kind of a big thing. 580 square miles, 56 million gallons of waste, over 30,000 drums of transuranics to ship, and decades of work to go. As we try and start off this session, we did a little video to give you a little bit of history of Hanford that we'll start with.
Along this river, men have played a significant role, which has changed the entire history of the world.
So as we stand on the threshold of significant milestones, it's crucial to recognize the power of collaboration. Hanford cleanup mission is complex and challenging, and one that demands expertise, dedication, and cooperation of each and every one of us across federal agencies, contractors, regulatory agencies, stakeholders, and community leaders. Together, we have made remarkable strides in addressing the environmental legacy left by decades of nuclear material production. Our efforts have not only advanced the cleanup mission, but have also reinforced the importance of safety, innovation, and efficiency in all of our operations. And yet there is much more work to be done at Hanford. Today, we are close to accomplishing the next big milestone, the starting of the low-activity waste vitrification plant. Finally, this accomplishment is the culmination of DOE contractors and the Washington State Department of Ecology all working together. While a very important accomplishment, it is just one of the steps in the cleanup mission. I urge us to continue to work together, leveraging our diverse skills and perspectives to overcome challenges and seize opportunities in front of us. It is my hope that we will soon be talking about the next accomplishment at Hanford, and then the next. And with each accomplishment, we'll find and take advantage of the new opportunities to accelerate the cleanup mission. It's been less than a year ago that EPA, Washington State Department of Ecology, and DOE signed the holistic agreement. An agreement that reduced the Hanford life cycle cost by $55 billion. But more importantly, it accelerated the waste retrieval in the West Tank Farms, an area that has very significant isotopes that move freely through the soil if they were to leak. Again, I'm going to say it, $55 billion and an acceleration of retrieving those West area tank farms. Big step forward. The leaders on this panel today and the companies they represent are accomplishing the Hanford mission together. As each describe the work they're accomplishing, I hope you are left with two things. One, a better understanding of all the amazing work going on at Hanford, and two, how important it is that the work is done together as we progress this mission. We'll start off with Carol to talk about H2C.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. So we started H2C, we started our contract in February of this year. And just to kind of say who we are, we're comprised of three companies, BWXT, Amentum, and Fluor, with teaming small businesses of Longenecker and Associates, DBD, Intera, and a company called DSS Plus, which is a chemical management, chemical safety company. So we've gotten off to a great start over the past 7 months, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But before I do, I just want to say, you know, I've kind of swooped in here at the nth hour and get to be part of this great Hanford set of projects and get to be a part of making the first transfer to the VIT plant and watch it start up. But my colleagues on the panel have been working at this for many years. And so I'm just pleased to be able to be a part of it and see these great achievements come to pass. I think entering the next phase is a bit of an understatement. And I mentioned this yesterday. It's really, really history in the making. And it's just really something that we all should be quite proud of. So H2C's vision is to solve the Department of Energy's largest environmental challenge in order to create a positive legacy for future generations, and primarily future generations within the Tri-Cities, our local community, which has been a part of this evolution of Hanford for many decades. So we as H2C are extremely proud to be a part of it. The slide here is an aerial view of the main core of operations at Hanford. The view is looking to the west, and Mark's project, WTP, is at the bottom of the screen. The east area of the tank farms is in the center of the screen, and 200 west areas to the top of the screen. We have 177 waste tanks of various sizes and ages, and only 28 of those waste tanks are double shell tanks, which therein lies a tremendous challenge, because in performing retrievals, we have to get waste out of the single shell tanks into a secure and safe double shell tank. And with only 28 of those, space is a significant challenge and consideration in the strategy that we deploy for waste retrievals. I'll start with a tank farm retrieval in the upper right box there. 23 tanks have been retrieved thus far. Many of those happened, several years ago, many years ago. As H2C, we just finished retrieving tank A101, and we'll resume A102 in a few weeks. And A102 will be the 23rd tank. And then we have another one in the queue, A106, will begin retrievals later this calendar year. So that's a challenge in terms of tank infrastructure and also a challenge in terms of the volume of additional waste water that we generate as a result of retrievals. Which leads me to the next box there, which is the 242A evaporator. The evaporator had been shut down for a number of years. Our predecessor contractor made tremendous strides in getting that evaporator both physically ready and the workforce, the employees ready to restart a nuclear facility after having been shut down for quite some time. So we inherited a facility that was just about ready to run, and we started it up, and so far we have generated 1.1 million gallons of tank space through that evaporator. It's quite an accomplishment considering the age of the equipment. Moving on down to the effluent treatment facility, this facility is critical for Hanford operations across the board because we take condensate from other locations on the site, but it's also very critical to Mark's project in starting up WTP because we receive effluent from WTP processing. We had a full basin there. If you see the 4 little gray boxes there on the right-hand side, those are actually retention basins, and there are 4 of them. And the one that we needed for WTP receipts was essentially full. And so over the past several months, we've processed the entire basin, about 7 million gallons through the effluent treatment facility. The government, HFO and DOE made a huge investment in that plant to have it ready for operation, about a $200 million investment prior to my time that really enabled that operation to come online and operate at a steady state. There are more modifications that are underway there. The waste streams coming back from WTP have organics, which are different than waste streams we've had in the past. There are unit operations within the effluent treatment facility that process those organics. So we're in the final throes of cold operations acceptance testing and then hot operations acceptance testing on that portion of ETF to enable receipt of organics, which will initially be stored in the retention basin and will be processed sometime later this year or later in fiscal year 26. TSCR, tank side cesium removal, that's the pre-treatment operation that was installed a few years ago. It too has been a very successful operation. We have about 800,000 gallons of qualified waste ready to send to Mark and his facilities whenever WTP is ready to go, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And then TSCR operation it's currently in an outage, a planned outage, and we'll restart it once in early November once WTP gets online. If I move around to the left side of the chart, the Advanced Modular Pretreatment System, this is a capital project that's underway and close to design completion. Ray Geimer mentioned yesterday the holistic agreement, which enables really the WARM project. AMPS and WARM are the same project. WARM will be in west area, AMPS is in east area. TSCR has limited capacity, and it will perhaps it will be a bottleneck for feeding WTP. So it's essential that we increase the throughput, which drives us to have AMPS online, and it's scheduled to be online in 2029. And it doubles the capacity to enable continuous feed to WTP. Just a shout out to Avantech, who is our partner in both AMPS and WARM in terms of manufacturing the ion exchange columns for TSCR and for the upcoming completion of construction of these 2 major projects. And then lastly, in West area is kind of the next frontier for us. That will be we have initial construction underway there for trailers and housing of construction teams and the workforce to enable the startup of retrievals in West area, as well as the construction of WARM. So those efforts have begun, and we have in our holistic agreement that Ray spoke about yesterday, we have 22 tanks by 2040 is our regulatory milestone. So West area is where those retrievals will happen. So critical long-term, several-year effort to get all of the infrastructure in place in order to do those retrievals. So that's kind of the landscape and where we are relative to the mission. So there is a lot of tremendous work underway to take this to the next level. Next slide, please. So I want to talk just a minute about our company values. We are, in order to enable the nuclear culture for continuous operation, we've established what we call a values-based organization. That values-based organization tees off of 6 values that we hold near and dear, that we are growing organically through the organization and also institutionalizing these values throughout our various processes. And in processes, performance management, training, et cetera. And our 6 values are to live safely, 24/7, own it, which is about accountability, commit to the mission, which is about why we're all here and what the government pays us to do, to make it better, to make something better every day, big or small, make something better every day, to listen first, listen to our colleagues, to our employees, and make that, and sometimes that's hard to do, to listen first, but that's critical to the kind of culture that we want. And lastly, to act with integrity. So as part of these values, we have ramped up our celebratory program. And this picture is a picture, an example of one of those celebrations. We're celebrating small successes and big successes. And this success here is readying the completion of AP 106 to send waste to WTP. So this is those folks who have been involved in training and procedures and operational readiness to make that first transfer. So in this picture are our nuclear chemical operators, rad techs, IH techs, and ops management. So quite proud of that. And they have a poster that says, "We did it," which is our celebratory program. We did it. We accomplished something that was great and important to the mission. So with that, I'll conclude and hand it over to Mark.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everybody, and I'm really glad to be here. So my name is Mark Johnson, and I recently rejoined the waste treatment project as the project manager for the high-level waste facility. And like you heard yesterday, with a lot of the people in the community and people supporting the different sites, I grew up in Eastern Washington. I went to college in Eastern Washington, and I started my career at the Hanford site as an engineer in 1993. In 1998, November 2nd, I joined Bechtel and came to the waste treatment plant and was very excited to work on, at the time, the most complicated project I thought going on in the country. And subsequent to that, I've held many positions on the waste treatment plant, leaving the project, going to work other DOE projects, DOD projects, commercial projects over the years, but returning into different positions and always feeling like it's been coming home. So I like I said, most recently joined as a project manager in June. So I'm back to WTP. The last 8 years I've spent on the building and as a project manager constructing LNG projects on the Gulf Coast of the United States and the West Coast of Australia. So feels really good to come home and be part of the Hanford family again. So, and what an exciting time to do it. I come in June, and a facility where I was a first engineering group supervisor on, IC is about to, has finished the ORR, has completed the environmental performance demonstration test, received CD4 approval, and is ready to proceed into hot commissioning, which is a really exciting time to come back and see something you worked on so long ago go operational. So yes, it's very exciting. And when I came back, it was exciting to see the success that we develop as a team. And that team is between Bechtel, our partner Amentum, the Department of Energy, our stakeholders, the environmental regulators, and the community has been very supportive of coming together to meet this objective to get this plant started. And as the project manager of high-level waste, I want to leverage all that good momentum and that good team building and team camaraderie and bring that over to HLW. And like I said, we don't get there alone. You heard Carol talk about having over 800,000 gallons of waste ready to be processed in LAW. But that's also interfacing with the other contractors, Amy and her team at HMIS, providing all the infrastructure, utilities, power to support the plant. And then eventually Bob's going to inherit those containers and take them as they come out of the back end of the plant. If you could go back one slide, on that, you'll see those are LAW containers that have been vitrified with simulated waste in those in the export facility, where there shortly would be, once radioactive, would be loaded onto truck to transfer it over to take custody from Bob. So just a brief history on HLW. So HLW facility was put on hold in 2013. At that time, the mission was shifting into a direct feed DF law approach, and HLW had to work through a lot of technical issues to get resolved with mixing, criticality, how you deal with hydrogen. All those issues have been resolved over those years and put behind us, and construction and design resumed in late 2023, and currently engineering is at 62% complete, and the construction of the facility is at 35% complete. So things we're talking about, you heard Carol mention safety. Well, safety is paramount to us, and construction is a very risky industry with our craft in working in jobs that are very physical and dealing with equipments with interface and picking, lifting, and rigging. So safety is paramount to us in how we execute our work and meeting our goal of zero accidents and ensuring that our workers go home in better condition than when they came to work. So that's something that we're really striving to achieve. We also are working hard to further accelerate the schedule and reduce the costs as we moving into, our goal is to complete the design in early 2027, be underway with what we consider long lead or critical procurements, and then weather in the facility, which involves installing concrete at the upper elevations, which if you see there, you'll see a rebar going in on the high-level waste facility at the upper elevations, installing the concrete, and going, if you look at the next slide, you'll see what we call an over-the-top piece of equipment. So a lot of that equipment was purchased in the early 2000s. It's been in storage. We've been working on getting that equipment in and installed in the facility. Over-the-top construction, place the concrete over that, and we have about 6,000 plus tons of steel to install, and then we'll cover and weather in the facility, all with that goal of early 2027. So let me talk a little bit about how we're executing that. So what we're really trying to do is what we call a new approach to HLW, and that is to reduce the cost of what this facility is and make it affordable for our customer, the Department of Energy, and the U.S. public. And how are we doing that? Well, the key to that is the best way to reduce costs, and there's lots of, but when we're in what we call phase 2 of that project, which is the construction, startup testing, and commissioning, every day that you can reduce that saves a significant amount of money by reducing the hotel load. So we're really focused on how do we best go about doing that. So the first off, we've shifted from a design build approach to a design then build. Now that doesn't sound like that's much different, but a design build approach is what we do very well on an LNG project where we're constructing very similar designs over and over again, and we can go from about 20% design, break ground, and then hit substantial complete in about 50 months. And have LNG coming out of the back end of the plant. But this plant is much more complex than that. So trying to do some of these things in parallel naturally will involve a lot of risk or rework. So how are we reducing that? Well, the design build approach allows us to advance the design much further before we take those next steps into construction and procurement and then construction. So a shift there, which is why we're trying to get that completed by early 2027. Also, along with that, we look at how we do that work and how we contract that work. So if we now, instead of contracting the whole thing with all those risks that we don't have solutions for, that leads to a lot of risk getting priced into the job. But if we go to we've gone to a phased contracting approach where we put those chunks of work in smaller chunks on contract, where we've mitigated the risk or we better understand the risk, that allows us to significantly reduce the cost of that. So that is a goal or something we're doing now and look forward to continuing doing as we go into phase 2. Other things we've done to improve the risk is, we're just finishing construction on the most recently about to go operational vitrification plant. And based on that, we've learned a lot of lessons. So incorporating those lessons learned from that startup, over 900 lessons learned from LAW, as well as other facilities. You saw DF Law coming down, but there was a lot of lessons we've picked up from that. One of my plant engineers is a past plant manager at Sellafield, which is a vitrification facility in England, as well as lessons from La Hague. So almost 900 lessons, and if they're applicable, we've dispositioned them and we're applying it to the design. Another item we're doing is closing legacy issues on that have been on the project. So as of right now, we've closed 691 of 716 historical corrective actions and nonconformance reports with the goal of getting that completed. That was a 2025 goal. We'll get that goal done. Legacy CRs will hopefully close this month, and legacy NCRs will get to our goal by the end of October. The other thing is when we're in startup and commissioning, a lot of lessons learned was when they went to do some of those handling operations, mechanical operations of moving that stuff around, a lot of issues surfaced. So we're looking at doing mock-ups and planning and test rigs to prove those demonstrations. So we're doing it ahead of the time and not during that time where we're trying to commission and have that very large hotel load. Now, we do have a new, Carol mentioned the pretreatment of the waste at her facility. That when it's coming to HLW, that waste will also be pretreated, and it's not going through the pretreat facility. It'll have a different rheology and a different chemical makeup. So we're doing testing at our down the road at PNNL, as well as very close to here with the VSL, where we're doing melter testing to confirm the designs work with this new rheology, as well as the off-gas system. And then also something that's being developed right now and will be tested is what we call enhanced glass waste formulations. And those formulations will allow more waste to go into the glass, which if you can get more waste into every container, you're going to produce less containers and finish sooner, which is another way that we can result in significant savings. So I'll just hit on a few, as I wind down, a few key achievements from the last year. So we've had revisions to our safety basis, the safety design strategy, the preliminary documented safety analysis, and the criticality safety evaluation report. Those have all been approved over 4 months ahead of schedule. That took really close interface with our customer at local office, as well as the nuclear safety experts at headquarters. Currently, design is about 70 days ahead of schedule on the critical path, completing 12 of 12 system design reviews that were supposed to be done by calendar year 2025. Got that done 3 months early, and then we're now pulling forward some of that work from 2026 to get it started now. On the construction front, we've completed 48 of 52 milestones for this calendar year. 26 of the over-the-tops out of the 28 goal have been completed, and we've done 9 of 11 concrete placements have been made. So we will finish those up about 2 to 3 months early. The last 2 over-the-tops are going to go in October, and we should wrap up the last concrete placements in November timeframe. And the last thing I'll hit before I turn it over is like I said, a lot of this equipment has been received in the early to mid 2000s, and it went into storage. So aging and obsolescence has become an item that we need to address. And so we've assessed all that equipment and have a plan to deal with how we bring it out and get it ready to operations. That involves, a lot of your control components will need to be replaced, as well as your soft parts on your pumps and valves, and what is the right time to replace that. So things are going well at HLW, and we really look for those to proceed. And with that, I will turn it over to Mark, who will talk about the lab.
All right, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about the significant contributions of the 22S laboratory to the mission at Hanford and how we got here. Starting out with a discussion about our company. Navarro-ATL is an unpopulated LLC formed by two businesses, Navarro Research and Engineering and Advanced Technologies and Laboratories International. And our job as a primary contractor at 22S Laboratories is to provide analysis of highly radioactive samples for the Hanford mission. So you've heard a lot about this morning about the exciting time we're in here at Hanford, and it is an exciting time. We're all anxiously awaiting that the next step. We've had a critical and crucial role at the labs in getting us here. I'm going to talk about that today. I want to express that as well as what we're doing to prepare for the long-term scope and mission at Hanford. So the 22S lab provides laboratory analysis for the waste feed going to the waste treatment plant from tank farms. We also provide analysis for the waste samples before and after tank retrievals, and also for tank operation samples to ensure the tank operations are safe and can't be performed long-term. We work very, very closely with DOE and Carol's team. We have to be in lockstep with Carol's team to make sure that what they need from us, we can provide, and we do that on a daily basis. And we work with all the other Hanford contractors to make sure we have what we need to get the job done. And so we'll talk about that as well this morning. It's an old facility, the Hanford 22S laboratory. It's 75 years old. In fact, we'll be celebrating our 75th anniversary next year and making a big deal out of that. And we've been out there for a long time, but the labs need some work, as you might imagine. This needs some upgrades and renovations. We've been doing that. It is a HASCAT 3 nuclear facility, and so we need to make sure that we maintain that level of rigor moving forward. So I'm going to talk this morning about our capability, our capacity, and our reliability to maintain the current mission, sustain it, and move forward into the future. And we're ensuring the lab has the capability by making sure we have state-of-the-art analytical and operational effectiveness. I'll talk about that. We're also upgrading the lab in many areas to make sure we're able to be ready for what we expect to be a 400% increase in tank samples coming our direction in the next several years. And we'll talk about the reliability. We have to make sure we can perform. We have to do all this work to maintain and sustain the lab without compromising the service we provide to our customers and to the other Hanford contractors. So in talking about capability, we just have to make sure we meet, as you might imagine, high quality assurance standards and regulatory requirements. In 2024, we delivered more than 1,200 samples, 1,200 sample analysis reports. Those reports are huge and have to be very accurate, and we reduced turnaround time by 20% and achieved a 90% on-time delivery rate. We're currently providing state-of-the-art analysis as we do that, support tank farm retrieval campaigns and the DF law feed, and we're finding ways to do it more efficiently. In that photo you see right there, that's Solomon. Say hi, Solomon. Solomon there is doing what we call the stir bar method. That's a method that we innovated there at the lab to provide a more precise and efficient analysis of waste samples. And we recently received regulatory accreditation for that innovative approach. So we're pretty proud of that. And we're always looking, as you heard from the other contractors so far this morning, always looking for ways to improve and be better at it. We're expanding our operational systems to help tank farms understand their boil down studies. We're working with Carol's team to find ways to lower detection limits for cobalt-60, to improve efficiency of mercury testing, and to improve tank integrity work. So working very closely with them to do that. Moving on to capacity, DOE is investing in the modernization of the laboratory. And what you see in that photo is a laboratory that's been remodeled. If we had a before picture, you would be so amazed right now by that photo. We're really doing a great job there. As I mentioned, 75 years old, and not a lot of renovation or upgrades over the years have been done to the lab. And so we're taking that challenge on head on, and we're proud about that. And we'll continue to do that as we support the work moving forward. In 2024, we completed a major hot cell window replacement. That was a huge project for us. We did that, self-performed that, did that, under budget and on schedule, and no contaminations and no injuries, those kinds of things. But it's really important also to the mission to make sure that we're ready for what's coming next. And we're repurposing hot cells to expand our storage for tank samples and continuing to replace life systems as we move forward. As far as our reliability, we're essentially de-risking the infrastructure to ensure 24/7 operations. This picture shows us using one of the more than 30 instruments we've upgraded and replaced in the lab so far. This is the X-ray diffraction instrument, which allows us to study the physical properties of samples we receive in a way that we haven't been able to before. And we have a lot of these new state-of-the-art instruments that we're introducing to the lab. We have made sure that by doing this, we can ensure proficiency test accuracy and decrease in analysis time. And right now we're hitting a 98% average proficiency test accuracy. And if you're familiar with lab work, 98% is pretty good. And we're pretty proud of that. And we're going to continue to work to even make that better. So this means staying on top of our preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance as well. As you might imagine, keeping an old lab running is a tough thing to do, but we're making that work. We have reduced our corrective maintenance backlog by 2/3 over the past year. And for the 8th week in a row, our PM backlog is at 0. And the importance of that is we've got to make sure that this lab stays in great working order for now and in the future. We can't do this alone. For many of the systems that we have, the systems like water systems and fire systems that we're having to upgrade, we rely on Amy's team quite a bit to help us with that. And she's been tremendous in providing that support. Some of our systems overlap with Bob's area of responsibility, so we have to work with his team to make sure we can access those systems and get those upgrades done. So this is, as you've heard throughout so far, this is a team effort by all of us, and working really hard to make sure we're ready for what's next. The one thing I do want to point out is that we've done all these upgrades and renovations without compromising the service we provide to our customers. We're not late on our deliverables. We continue to do the analysis that's needed, and we're doing that all at the same time. As our brand new site manager, Ray Geimer, says, we're hosting and cooking the Thanksgiving dinner while remodeling the kitchen. And so we'll continue to do that and make sure we're doing the right things. So we like to say we're building the lab of the future. So stay tuned and you'll hear more about that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
All right, thanks, Mark. I'd just like to note up here that this end of the table was the bald side of the table. Carol, apparently you got a new haircut you got to get, right? Mark and I came this morning with a fresh haircut, you know, right, ready for this event. Or I got to change my name to Johnson. I don't know what it's going to be, but Carol recommends Johnson maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So as Mark mentioned earlier, we are the back end of the process for everything associated with vitrification activities. I call it hot potato. We'll take the canisters when they come over to us, receive them up on the upper platform or area we have, let them sit and cool off until they're no longer a hot potato, and then we'll move them down into our final storage resting location for the foreseeable future until the final destination is determined at some point later on, way later in the future. So for us, it's right at the kind of the final throes at the end of the campaign. We've been ready for about the last 9 months to receive those, been interacting with mock-ups with Mark's team to make sure that everything transitions very easily and simplistically as they come out of his area once they're completed, and we're geared up and ready to go and excited for them to get started on that. Been a long time coming for all of us. As Mark started here in 93, I think I started in 92, so I think we all came out at the same time. Both of us had hair then, neither one of us do now. So yesterday, we had a panel up here. I did mention, so that, this is a next phase of Hanford, although this is a massive step that we're seeing associated with everything that's associated with tank waste. We are still doing massive things in other areas. One of the areas that we're responsible for, and we're just now getting on the precipice of going through our second readiness review with the Department of Energy's approval for us for starting up cesium strontium capsules. If you go ahead and go to the next slide. We are planning to start loading cesium capsules as early as right around the Halloween time period. And we'll, for a better part of the next 2 years after that, be removing all of the cesium capsules that we have that are currently in a wet storage location up to a dry storage location. As Ray mentioned yesterday, I think 60% of all the cesium on the Hanford site resides in those capsules. So they are a significant risk. But On top of that risk, once we complete that campaign from the cesium, and then we have some strontium ones that we're going to move out either to dry storage or there's some commercial interest in that. Should they, DOD and DOE, decide to go move forward with that, we'll get rid of that. But what that will do is, in about a 2.5-year time frame, it'll free that facility up to actually start going into the longer term D&D part of the campaign for Canyon facility, which will allow us to start offloading the current costs associated with managing a facility of that nature, about a $30 million price tag per year that we would then free up associated with that. So we're excited to get rolling with that. It's a significant step that's been in the making for a better part of about the last 8 years, kind of getting things lined up to ready to go to remove those items and move those out of there. So a great step forward for us. If you go to the next slide. Speaking of momentum, speaking of the next phase of the Hanford cleanup, I think if you've come to any of these conferences, one of the things that Hanford always touts is they treat about 2 billion gallons of groundwater per year associated with the Hanford site. We're over that 2 billion gallons again this year. But where that focus has really shifted over the last few years is really an emphasis on not the volume of liquid that's coming that's being treated for groundwater, but really the mass that's being removed, the constituents, the chemical constituents, the radioactive constituents that are being removed from the Central Plateau, from the river corridor. And that's been multiple years in the making, a decade or more in the making of that. And where we're at today is we're in the process of doing some rebound studies along the river corridor area, with the intent that that's going to demonstrate that we've actually cleaned all those constituents up around that river corridor, and now really are just focused up into the Central Plateau, the 200 East, 200 West area along the picture that Carol showed earlier, kind of when you're looking east to west, that Central Plateau, the 200 East, 200 West area, where most of our efforts going on that. Been so successful in our groundwater campaign along that river corridor and ultimately up on the Central Plateau that we were able to identify through the course of this year an opportunity to actually pause or stop some well drilling activities that we had that we're going to go put in from a couple of other plumes that we don't believe we may not need to go do because we've had such great success. What we did ultimately with that is that freed up some of our money through the course this year, and we moved some of that money over to some activities that we're planning to do going into the next this next year for us. Is we're moving over into the RAP facility complex and the 2706T facility. Those of you who don't know what those facilities are, the RAP complex is what used to do contact handled true repackaging activities when we first started at Hanford and we're doing the first transuranic campaign. That facility has degraded over time. We're eventually going to go demolish it and we're going to go build an alternative process to go doing that treatment. But by shifting that money over, this next year, we're going to be able to go take that facility, what we call a cool and dim, meaning that we are able now to take the authorization basis and take the regulatory requirements, isolate the glove boxes off, control the contamination, shut the electricity off, ultimately shut the fire suppression system off, which is going to save us about $10 million a year in annual costs that we don't otherwise need to spend at that point. So by having so much progress in the groundwater, it's allowed us to free up money to go start approaching some other different areas we have. Additionally, with that kind of that spend and save, and if you go to the last slide for our area, one of the things that we've really been able to accomplish is continue to divert some money over to the K area. So I just mentioned all that progress that we made along the river corridor for the groundwater. K area is really, K West area is really the last remaining river corridor area, minus a 300 area, 324 facility, that when we finish up the K area, that will allow us ultimately to take, I'll call it a culture shift, to allow us to really start shrinking the footprint down up to the Central Plateau that really allows all of Hanford to really focus on 200 East, 200 West campaign activities. We're a couple of years away from finishing that up. And we've been able to fund those activities through the department through a collection of efficiencies and gains where we actually go spend some money in an area, reduce the cost in an area, and take that money and go over and continue to make progress along that river corridor while we're taking care of the number one priority on the site of getting the tank waste mission going and all the activities associated with that. So for what does that mean for us? when we get to that state is it allows us to continue to free up more money from road maintenance, from those that are bugs and bunnies, people that go out there, from just our emergency preparedness, and everything culturally allows us to shift and really become much more micro focused on a couple of the activities we have associated with to do. So it's exciting times for DF Law, for everything for DF Law. But while that's going on, we're making significant strides in all the other areas that we have. We get that through we play in everybody else's space because we're near to them. We're knocking down buildings right alongside of them. We were over doing work within 100 yards of Mark here in the last year. So we got to coordinate very closely with those guys of what we're doing and how we're playing in their spaces to make sure that they know what we're doing, we know what they're doing, and we're all kind of collectively aligned with that. And so we're very frequently calling each other or texting each other all day, all long, and all night long, giving each other some harassment. So I tried getting Mark to get a proper haircut too, but he wouldn't go for it. So for CPCCo, you know, kind of in a nutshell, we'll continue to what I'll call take savings and reinvest that savings and opportunities to go create more savings as we continue to reduce the federal liability for what we have for the Hanford site through both risk reduction as well as the financial liabilities and managing and maintaining some of these old facilities that we have and infrastructure that we have. And we don't do that ultimately by probably 60% of our staff that we do to execute it on our footprint, our staff that's provided for us that we buy through Hanford Mission Integration Solutions. So with that, I will do a handover to my fellow compadre over there, Amy. And before I do to Amy, Amy did get a red-eye flight over here to come see and do this presentation with us. And Amy, if you are social media, which a lot of you are on your phones looking at that, you would notice that Amy got a leadership award here this week. And so congratulations, you are more deserving for that. So.
Thanks, Bob. Very nice. Yeah. So hi, everybody. I'm Amy Basche, the president of Hanford Mission Integration Solutions. We're an LLC comprised of Leidos, Parsons, and Centera, and we have a critical subcontractor, Northwind, on our team. And, you know, first and foremost, I'll just, you know, give a shout out to my teammates up here. So we are really here to enable the success of their mission. Our job is to make sure that they have all the tools and components that they need to really operate and effectively execute their critical mission. So, you know, we provide, if it moves, it powers, it trains, it protects, it connects the Hanford site. HMIS is safely and efficiently delivering that. So we work behind the scenes a lot of the times to make sure that Mark has reliable power. Without power, the waste treatment plant will not be operating. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we have reliable and stable services to be able to go perform and provide what each of these individual companies need to execute their mission. And I tell my staff, it's a great day when I know that I'm not getting a call from any one of these sitting up here telling me that there's some concern or issue. So we really do have great teams below us that are making sure that every single day they are talking and connecting to make sure that those services are being provided effectively and efficiently. Because that's the last thing any of us want is for one small little piece of the puzzle to not connect in and then something larger takes shape. So, you know, my team provides a whole host of things that I'll talk through here in a little bit. Some of the basic services, more than bugs and bunnies, Bob, geez. We do bugs and bunnies. We have a great biological control team that goes around, really, Brian mentioned it, the site is massive, 560 square miles. It takes a lot to keep the site safe and in a compliant manner with the environmental rules, regulations, et cetera. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other services, but really some of the core services that our company provides, you know, for the infrastructure is the successful power. You've heard a lot about the power needs from the environment and the communities. Certainly we continue that with the upcoming needs of the high-level waste plant. The continuation of reliable power is going to be important, so we spend a lot of time with them on that. The water services. So I'm proud to say that we just completed a new water treatment facility, replacing the 1940 circa facility, which I'll be honest is in still really great shape, but it just couldn't provide the volume that's needed to support the waste treatment plant. So we just completed that, are in final readiness stages at this point, and will be online operational by the end of December. That plant has the capability to perform and provide up to 3 million gallons a day. and has the capacity to go up to 5 million as we continue to work with the waste treatment plant team on what their volume needs are. So very excited to be able to start, I'll say, modernizing the infrastructure in that way. You'll see here a picture of our L888 groundbreaking, which is the groundbreaking for a new fire station, Brian. I know, look how excited. Finally, it took a few years to get there. So we're very excited to be able to start the groundbreaking and construction of a new 200 East area fire station that will be just to the east of the waste treatment plant and the kind of the key hub area of 200 East area where a significant amount of individuals are working every single day. So it's been years in the making to get that fire station up and coming. And what I just would want to highlight on that groundbreaking ceremony. So we probably had, I would say, 45 people attend the groundbreaking ceremony. And you sit there and go, it's a fire station. We build fire stations in every one of our cities and counties every single day. What was great to see in that is we had partners from everybody sitting up at this table who came out to support the team, again, demonstrating our One Hanford commitment, knowing that this isn't just a fire station for me who happens to be the lucky person to operate it, but really it's a benefit to the entire Hanford site. So that's the type of collaboration that our One Hanford team continues to bring forward. Some of the other pieces, just to talk about some of the pivotal pieces that our team has been supporting Carol and the H2C team. So late last year, even primarily before Carol and her team transitioned, one of the systems had a failure on one of their pump stations, and we required the need of that pump station to transfer water out. We immediately pulled together a project team, an integrated project team with H2C, our team, and one of our subcontractors that happened to be on contract working on a water project with us, and literally came up with a technical approach that was able to bypass that pumping station for a period of time while Carol and her team fixed the more detailed items in that pump station. And now that is now the backup system that will be in place long-term for if in the event a system fails again, we now have a backup capability to be able to pump water and move it through that substation area. We also have been supporting H2C and us on the purchasing of a new crane, a 300-ton crane that we have added to the fleet specifically for all of the work that Carol and her team have yet to come. She mentioned some of the items taking shape in West area with the new holistic agreement, and quite frankly, the infrastructure in that area is not yet ready for all of that work, so we will be supporting her. So the purchase of this crane and them having a dedicated crane, we provide the trained and qualified crane crews, we provide the maintenance so that we can ensure the safety of that approach moving forward. But that's just I'll say, barely touches on the cusp of the integration activities that we integrate and spend time together literally every week, making sure that we know how we're going to go move the mission forward. One of the pieces on the, besides utilities and crane pool, a couple of other areas that I just want to highlight that are really important for us is the joint success. I tell my team, and we believe it every day, is that their success is really our success as well. And so how do we continue to innovate? Carol mentioned they've been on site since February timeframe. Many of the employees we've worked with for many, many years. I've had the pleasure of knowing Carol as well for many years. And so it really is a joint effort to figure out how we be innovative together. There is some approach that says, when you're teaming and partnering together versus, hitting each other in the head every day, it really can move the mission forward in a much better and faster way. So anyway, we're continuing to share those types of items and just some pieces that kind of get lost in the fray for what we provide. Our goal is to take out of these individual companies some of the, I'll say, distraction activities that they may not need to. And some of those equate to things like, how is your road getting plowed to get your 2,000 employees to work today? We're going to do that for you. How are you going to pay your people? We're going to do that for you. How are you going to clean 300 facilities? We're going to do that for you. Those are the things that, again, we're not operating in the high hazard operations areas as these folks up here are. We're really trying to take the activities that are day-to-day business-oriented functions out of their way so that they can focus on their high-hazard operations, and that's what we provide and we integrate with them on. So you've heard also, Brian mentioned it, the site is very massive, and we take that responsibility extremely seriously. So just to share a little bit about, we have a fleet of emergency support and emergency response. We do have 3 fire stations currently active and operating, 8 large fire trucks, 10 wildland fire trucks. For those that haven't been to the Hanford site, wildland fires are real. We live in a desert. I tell people, they go, "Oh, where do you work?" I tell them, they go, "Oh, it's so beautiful and green in Washington." Go across the mountains, and yes, you are right, but not in Eastern Washington where we reside, right? So wildland fires are real. We have, 1 4,500-gallon tender, 2 dozers. So maintaining and keeping that equipment up and running to be able to respond is important. We have 6 ambulances, 1 heavy rescue truck, 52 Hanford Patrol response vehicles, and perhaps most importantly, my 6 favorite employees are my 6 canine dogs. So just saying. And somebody mentioned yesterday in a panel that I was watching about the community involvement. I'll just speak about our canines for just a minute. So literally just this week, we sent out 2 canines to a local high school. The Kennewick Police Department had asked for our support because they had what they believed and was a reasonable bomb threat. So they asked and called. And so we do have mutual aid agreements in order to be able to support our cities and communities in that effort. And so we are proud to be able to support and provide those types of services to our community. Information security. I know that over the last couple of days, there's been a lot of talk about AI and what we do with AI, how do we protect ourselves with AI. So one of our key components of our contract as well is to support the cybersecurity aspects of the entire Hanford site. I know that many times we can shake our head a little bit about, oh my gosh, do we really have to go through all of that rigmarole to get a new system onto the internet? And we continue to ask ourselves how we can be more effective and efficient, but still maintain the safety posture that's necessary in the world that we're all living in cyber threats. So we're continuing to work that. Right now, our team responds to anywhere from about 2,100 in any given month up to 3,800 incidents on our network each month of hackers, cyber threats, et cetera. So the threat is real. We also provide information technology and content and records management to the site. We maintain 9,500 computers, and as many of you know, that would be call number 1. If Bob calls me at 5 in the morning, I know that his computer did not turn on. So, I mean, we just, let's face it, right? We all kind of live and die with the technology these days. And so when your computer, when your phone, when those types of things aren't working, when a system is down, we all kind of just stand and go, well, what do we do next? So the fact that I manage a 24/7 help desk, I manage a NOC facility to be able to ensure that if there are bad actors trying to access, that we are managing those effectively and making sure that these individuals can show up, and there are thousands of people can show up every day. Their computer's going to turn on, and they're going to be able to operate, because good, bad, right, or wrong, our systems are all integrated, and we rely on the internet to be able to provide those services every single day. Almost every employee from every contractor will spend time at Hammer, which is our, I'll say, kind of one-of-a-kind, unique training facilities at the Hanford site. It actually provides and performs about 50,000 student days a year of training, not just to Hanford, but the local Pacific Northwest National Laboratory utilizes it. Various different training entities from local fire departments, local police departments, other agencies that perhaps are needing some sort of hazardous waste training just to have a basic understanding. And so we're very proud to be able to support and have a facility like Hammer available to us. We also manage specialized craft services. So it's not unusual for on any given day that I get requests. We have a process where people can order crafts, whether it be a painter, a carpenter. And so all of those pieces come into our system, and on any given day, I'm providing anywhere from 200 to 300 craft personnel out to the other Hanford contractors to perform their work. The beauty of that is that we have a collective pool of people that are trained, qualified, and can be able to go provide that support. So instead of every single company having to have each individual craft where perhaps they don't need a full-time carpenter, but those 2 weeks out of the year when they do need the carpenter, they really need the carpenter. We can coordinate and plan that, and so we effectively utilize resources in that capacity and manner. We have a great, I'll say, planning process. Most of the time it works fairly well. There are always going to be some days, weeks that we have some stumbling blocks. We have a meeting that's called the Battle of Bodies where, you know, Mark may show up or one of his team members and go, I need 3 extra pipe fitters this week, Amy. And Carol and her team show up and go, but I need 40. And so we sit and negotiate, I'll say, on how the priority of work needs to take shape. Because again, while we'd all like to have a lot more money to be able to staff at our peaks, that's just not realistic in the environment that we operate in, nor is it effective. And so we, you know, we don't plan to the peak, we don't plan to the valley, but we actually do fairly detailed forecasting for those services so that we can continually right size. It's not, we are pretty successful with our unions at using temporary employees. So if I see a significant uptick in a specific craft that's going to be sustained over a period of time, I can go utilize temporary craft people to help fill that gap. So there's a lot of detailed integration and activities that take shape, again, all in the effort to be able to support these projects and have them be effective and efficient in their missions. So I'll talk a little bit about innovation. So originally I'm like, well, what is this slide? It's very colorful. So I'll talk about a few of the things that we've done to bring a level of innovation. So first, I've heard a lot about AI, ChatGPT. We actually implemented at the Hanford site what's called HAL, the Hanford AI Liaison, which is a tool that is now been deployed out to the holistic site to use, and it's quite amazing, that really allows us to use a ChatGPT AI type model, but it is secured within the Hanford intranet. It doesn't learn, it doesn't send things outside of the Hanford intranet, that was able to get through the security posture that we needed. I heard yesterday a few different areas where people were looking to leverage their AI, similar to what we're doing, procedures as an example. At HMIS, we have over 600 procedures. Somebody asked me the other day, we had an all managers meeting, Amy, are you compliant with your procedure set? And I said no. And I had people literally about lose their mind. Amy, how can you say you're not compliant? I said, it's impossible for me to be compliant with 600 procedures. So we're using HAL to help us reduce that level because we know we have some level of duplication. So that's just one area. I heard work package planning yesterday. That's another area that we're looking at how we can leverage AI to really help improve, perhaps reduce the timing and the volume of some of the repetitive type things that we see. Training is another area that we're looking at how we can leverage and go utilize AI. So we're really excited. And again, we work to develop some of those tools and then be able to share those across the other Hanford contractors for their use and integration aspects as well. Another, of course, game changer, not new to the industry per se, but is our drone program. So this happens to be, we actually attached some LiDAR systems, 2 drones to be able to start imaging. Off to the one side is a picture of our cocoon reactor. We just completed doing our 10-year evaluations on the cocoon reactor, and we're able to go in with LiDAR and be able to do detection. And as we then move forward, you can do change detection technology using a simple drone flight that will identify if there's been any type of degradation to a facility. Is there a change? We're also looking to use that change detection technology. We manage the power lines on site. It can look to, is there a change in the drag and drop of a power line that perhaps needs to go be reviewed? Typically, you would send linemen up, which is again one of my, I'll say, biggest risk areas. Makes me the most nervous is probably the lineman. It's a very dangerous job. We can avoid putting people up in bucket trucks, looking at lines in high hazard situations by utilizing and leveraging our drone technology. So we're continuing to work our way through that. The drone program is managed by HMIS. It's available to any of the Hanford contractors to utilize. And it took us probably about a year to 18 months to get off the ground and running, but now it's very rare that we don't at least have 1 to 2 drone flights a week by myself or any of the other companies that are leveraging it for a whole host of different reasons. So thrilled to see that come to fruition. Beyond innovation, I know that, again, the key thing is how do we drive efficiencies and save money? I can guarantee, like most of you on your sites, you have a list of buyback projects that you'd love to be able to go fund, but there just isn't the money to go do that. We too have them, all of us do. So beyond innovation, some cost savings initiatives that I just wanted to touch on real briefly is one of the pieces that we have the responsibility is we manage the site benefit programs for the site. Last year, we decided to go out for an RFP for our medical benefits, and we decided for the first time at Hanford that we would self-insure. So we worked our way through that process and actually expect to see about anywhere between $10 and $12 million a year in cost savings with our new benefits plan. We also negotiated with the outgoing benefits provider for what we called a rate holiday, which saved the government about $11 million, and it saved our employees somewhere between $2 to $3 million, depending on the plan that they had utilized. So they actually got literally 2.5 months of their benefits provided to them at no cost while we negotiated and worked with the insurance vendor. So again, those are just a few of the pieces that we've been working. Again, we continue. Carol mentioned some pieces yesterday with regards to 413.3. We're all, of course, interested in that as we implement projects moving forward of how we can go be more effective and efficient. Is it a threshold change? Is it a reporting change? I think that we all need to be a little realistic. 413 is a framework for good project management. And how do we just go, maneuver within that framework to be able to maximize efforts? Again, for me, I'm dealing with commercial type projects, a fire station, a water treatment plant, hopefully in the future, some roads, really the commercial type projects. So we've really taken a step back and said, how do we start being more commercial-like? We as a company, we as an integrator, to be able to go leverage the types of things that the communities seem to be able to do differently, better, than we seem to be able to do the minute it hits something called a government site. So we've been challenging our constructor, all still focused on safety as our #1 priority, but how do we go do things differently? We've had a great partner in the Department of Energy to help us understand, I'll say, where our guardrails are with regards to the framework of commercial-like. Fire station is really going to be one of our first areas where we're going to, I'll say, test that case a little bit. We're looking at OSHA Plus versus the full DOE safety order and what does that mean? Many of our contractors told us that they wouldn't bid on work because they just didn't want to go create new programs that they didn't otherwise have within their normal course of business. And if they did have to go do that, then their price was going to go up. And so we're really trying to leverage information, listening to our subcontract community as well, to what they need to be able to come into the market. I'm sure this is similar to what many of you hear in your communities as well. So we're continuing to work through, and hopefully that brings us a level of cost savings and efficiency and effectiveness. So those are just some of the highlights that I wanted to share about HMIS, but I will just close with, when we talk, you saw the video at the beginning, which I think that in a 1-minute video, it really does highlight the importance and kind of the history and the future of what's taking shape at Hanford. But the One Hanford team for us, it's really, it's more than talk, it's more than a logo. It is about the collaboration that we do everything. There is rarely a week. I can't even think of when the last week would have been that I do not have a conversation with every single person sitting here on this panel. That is just how we have elected and chosen to operate the One Hanford mission at Hanford. Because again, it is a high hazard operation. It's important to our community, and it's important to the ultimate EM goal of cleanup. So thank you.
So just quickly, I'd like to thank the Hanford contractors for the progress they're making and for their willingness to work together in team to make the projects go smoothly. So thank you. Dave?
That was a lot, huh? There's a, I don't know, maybe you might say that the Hanford side is sort of like the Broadway of the cleanup world. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I don't know. And the reality is that they really just sort of scratched the surface. There's so much else that's happening. Getting ready to stand up the true repackaging and shipment. Bob briefly mentioned, but the 324 building, there's a lot more going on. So appreciate that panel and all those descriptions of much of the work that's happening. We have probably time for a couple audience questions if there are any. I see Commissioner Delvin from Benton County has already put his hand up. Commissioner, there are a couple mics, or if you just want to project.
Yeah, this is, I'll address it. 324, we're making great progress. We're actually awarded 2 vendors here recently in the last couple of months that are coming out to do both fixative fogging and then some grouting evolutions to stabilize the facility itself as we're continuing to go through the regulatory process to get final approval to go the alternative path of tearing the building down, digging the waste site up. We'll be inside that facility kind of doing stabilization activities and preparation activities for the demolition for the better part of the next year, year and a half. But we're right now about 4 months ahead of schedule where we need to be at. So good, steady progress, getting things fixed inside that facility, making sure things are characterized. And that was really kind of the intent for this year. We finished that up and we're now actually into next year's scope, FY26's scope. So, you know, that's a parallel activity while the regulatory process gets the final approval that we've had with the regulators to allow us to get up to a point of tearing the building down before we get that final documentation approved. So like I said, we're about 4 months ahead of schedule right now. So, yep.
I do have one question for the panel, and I guess sort of beginning back to referencing something you said yesterday, Bob. You're talking about the kind of taking workforce and career progression, kind of a different approach than maybe had been taken in the past, where we're all sort of in this together. And if somebody moves from one site or one contractor to another, that ultimately is still helping to move the mission forward at a higher level. We were pleased at TRIDEC to work with FCOG and ECA to put together what I thought was a really good workforce roundtable about a year and a half ago. There's since been at least 2 or 3 more in the community to talk about meeting the future workforce needs, not only for Hanford, for the National Laboratory, for Energy Northwest, and our new nuclear efforts as well. But can you guys maybe speak to some of the workforce challenges, opportunities, what's happening right now in the workforce world and what you guys need at the Hanford site?
I'll start, let everybody else pile on. As David mentioned yesterday, we've taken in our house a slightly different approach to those that we bring in. You don't learn the nuclear business by going to college. You learn the nuclear business by doing nuclear business to a degree. And so additionally, our younger generation workforce is much more immediate, needs to see things more immediately, where some of us would go sit in a role for 4 or 5 years, and that was kind of the expectations. They're sitting in roles for 6 months, expecting the next change for that. And so we've tailored our developmental programs kind of set around smaller bites so they can see the progress that they're making while they're off and going doing that. If you were to look, I think, at our entire workforce for Hanford, we have always talked about the white tsunami or the silver tsunami and all those type of things. Well, that's happened. It happened at Hanford about 5 years ago. And we swapped over about 60% of our workforce are new within the last 5 years. I think every one of us to a degree has had that. So we have a new workforce and we've had to adapt our cultural mindset shift around that and how we continue to have that strong and keep that strong. And so by tailoring to that new workforce that's coming in, as well as tailoring how we pair them with some of our senior folks, we've been seeing drastic improvement on that. That being said, David, as you mentioned, my comment last week was, or yesterday was, when you learn the nuclear business, it's a small family community. Many of us know each other. We all walk around shaking each other's hands. We see that, and establishing that same rapport with the younger generation is really important for us. And as they do have things that they want to go do because they want to go explore something, we would just assume they leave to go next door to Carol or to Mark or to Amy, while we can still continue to have that nuclear enterprise knowledge base. And then ultimately, maybe we can boomerang them back around in another 5 or 6 years when they come back around. And we've been successful with that. I just literally got a call out of Mark's group from Kim Jackson yesterday from a text that said, hey, one of your employees, we'd like to actually go offer as a manager job. It's a promotion for her. And I said, great, go offer it to her, right? I mean, it's awesome for her. And so that kind of one Hanford mentality, like Amy said, that's really where you're living that, right? Is that acceptance versus, no, I'm going to fight you every tooth and nail to take any one of my employees. We are all together in this, and ultimately our success is by each other's success. So.
Anybody else want to speak to that?
So my only comment would also be, we are very fortunate in the Tri-Cities to have a 4-year college with Washington State University, and we have a Columbia Basin College, community college that have been very helpful in establishing programs that the Hanford site needs, whether it be a RadTech program, an industrial health and safety training program. And so we're really able and lucky to leverage the local community college and the 4-year college to really help facilitate and keep our pipeline filled. And if there is another, we get a lot of engineering students from the local community college in co-op programs. And I know all of us are supporting internships and co-ops in order to, as Bob mentioned, it takes time for these new employees to kind of understand even the specific Hanford language, as I'll say it. And so those are some of the tools that we really continue to foster and leverage.
Thank you, Amy. And we are getting pretty close on time, but can't miss an opportunity to hear from Richland Mayor Teresa Richardson.
Thank you, David. Is there an on button here?
Yeah, I think we can hear you.
It's on? Okay, Thank you. It's great to hear from all of you and get that sense of camaraderie. So thank you all for your words. My question, as we approach this historic moment and flipping the switch for the startup of the VIP plant, I know you've got a lot to consider to make that happen. But will there be any public opportunity for us to cheer you on?
I hope so. It's really a big step forward, not just for the site, but for the community. So I anticipate that there will be events. We haven't shaped them up yet because I'll be blunt. I wanted to make sure I had some separation from celebration and actual start, so that the start wasn't driven because we had scheduled something. So we're getting close now. We'll start setting up and planning for what we're going to do to mark this huge step forward. So thank you.
I'll be watching.
Okay, one more quick question.
Hi there. Yeah, this is quick. I just want to suggest that it would have been really cool to have a visual, a map of the site showing how you're evolving things. For example, you were mentioning getting things out of the 100K area. I started in November '93, coincidentally right when you guys were starting. And we had all these trailers up there. I'm imagining, but I don't know because I haven't seen the visual, that you're getting all the people away from the K area and down to the 200 area. But what about things like Excel Energy and the new data centers? Would they be going by the 300 area, 400 area? Be cool to see a graphic of how you're going to evolve things with time. And then on the west border, you got this big infrastructure, 240. People could go there. You're not next to the river, but that's infrastructure you don't have to build. Anyway, thank you.
Amy, you can have Hal do that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. And thanks everybody for your attention. It was a great panel. Please join me in thanking them.